All right, guys. So Elon Musk is moving to Texas, and this is kind of a big deal. And some conservatives are celebrating this as a win. They're basically saying, listen, this is proof that California's taxes are too high, and liberal states like California are not good for business. And you're seeing a lot of companies, tech companies, moving out of California, moving into the South and more conservative states like Texas. Now, when this news first came out, I kind of had the same thought, right? I was like, oh, this is a win, right? We're bringing more jobs to Texas. We're bringing more jobs to the South. We're making conservative states better. However, the more I started to think about it, and the more I started to look into the migration patterns that are going on right now, that was happening before the virus and now because of the virus, guys, I think that this is something that is terrifying for the future for the GOP and conservatives, because this is now happening at a level that could shock the current political landscape of this country and could make our political environment going forward much different for future elections. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective, aka a leftist worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at gforemanbcp. Let's get it. All right, guys, like I said, Elon Musk is moving to Texas. Now let's take a look at why Elon Musk is moving to Texas.
Look at shares of Tesla, which are in the news again as the stock is at an all-time high today, saying it's going to be selling $5 billion in stock. Elon Musk said yes today on a CEO Council online forum with the Wall Street Journal. He has moved to Texas. And then when asked about the state of business in California, well, here's what Mr. Musk had to say.
If a team has been winning for too long, they do tend to get a little complacent, a little entitled, and then they don't win the championship anymore. So California's been winning for a long time. And I think they're taking it for granted a little bit.
That is not to say that Tesla will be moving facilities out of California. Remember, you still have the plant in Fremont. Its headquarters still remain in the Bay Area. But one other interesting note, guys, Elon Musk was also talking about the state of business in California, and he said the Silicon Valley has way too much influence on the world of business. Interesting comments from Elon Musk this afternoon. Back to you.
All right, guys, so that's Elon Musk's take in terms of why he's moving to Texas. Now, again, like I said, a lot of conservatives, including Senator Ted Cruz, see this as a win because there's more jobs that are coming from these liberal states that are going to Texas, and these are high-paying jobs. However, let's talk about the economics of California a little bit, right? And why certain places like San Francisco in California has such high cost of living. And in my opinion, this is a short-term win, but in the long term, this could place some inflationary pressures on these cities like Austin, Texas, that are receiving a lot of these new companies and these new high-paying tech jobs. The reason why the cost of living in places like San Francisco is so high is because, for one, a lot of these tech jobs don't really contribute anything back to the economy, because a lot of the employees are young college students who are only moving there temporarily in the first place. So they come in, they get paid these nice fancy salaries like $300,000 a year. That drives up rent. And for the little guys, the people that's working at grocery stores, restaurants, and bars, it makes living in a place like that a lot less affordable. And these other companies and these other more conservative industries, let's say, don't have the ability to raise salaries to compensate for this. So that's why you see certain cities in California and parts of the country have high costs of living. Now, with this type of stuff also comes local and state tax increases, because these politicians, right, like in California, they're going to try to make up for this by increasing taxes, specifically on those that are making more money, in order to try to provide more public assistance to those who are making less money. So that's why you see states like California and New York have high taxes, because the government will try to provide public assistance, public transportation, services in order to help compensate for these type of inflationary increases and things of that nature. So again, it may or may not lead to higher taxes. It remains to be seen, but I'm just theorizing here based off what we've seen historically happen in California. Now, if I'm a Texas politician, especially a local politician, I would be glad that these jobs are coming, right? High paying jobs is great. But at the same time, I would be concerned about the long-term ramifications of these type of jobs moving in for people that have more traditional jobs. Because again, this can drive up corporate real estate prices and real estate for homes and things of that nature. Now, what happened in San Francisco is that a lot of these people, they come in temporarily, they make a lot of money, they live frugally, and then they don't contribute much to the economy, they don't have families, and then they move out. So, you know, it's great if they're moving there with the intention of having employees stay there permanently, long-term, and contribute to the economy. However, if it's the same type of patterns that we see that's happening in San Francisco, it's a win short-term. However, long-term, it could be a concern. Now, that's just a little bit of the economics of why this may or may not be concerning. However, something that's bigger, in my opinion, is the political ramifications of a lot of these liberals and progressives moving from these big liberal bastions like California and New York down to the South. And the reason why is because they move to these conservative states and they also bring their liberal ideas with them. And also, if all these tech billionaires are moving, they're going to bring their liberal ideology and try to influence local politics in these states as well. So, all right, so let's take a look at some of the migration patterns that is currently happening right now in the United States. Not just tech companies and tech billionaires moving to conservative states, but also just regular normal people from these cities moving to the South into these conservative states. So according to USPS data, over 15.9 million people have moved just due to coronavirus, right? So let's look at where they're moving from. They're moving from cities like New York, Brooklyn, Chicago, San Francisco, like I mentioned, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., cities that are traditionally strong Democratic strongholds, right? And again, where they're moving to is red states like Texas, Arizona, and Georgia. And guys, I get it. I understand how you guys feel about this current election. 100% understand it. But just for this video, I'm going to go with the current data that we have in order to prove my point here, because this stuff is terrifying, right? So according to the Atlantic, they talked about the effect that these young residents from these Democratic strongholds are having moving to certain counties across the country, and how that can affect politics and how that has been affecting our elections. So, quote, "This drip, drip, drip of young residents trickling down into red state suburbs is helping to turn southern metros into Democratic strongholds. In Texas, Democrats advantage in the 5 counties representing Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Austin grew from 130,000 in 2012 presidential election to nearly 800,000 in the 2018 Senate election. In Arizona, from 2012 to 2016, Democrats narrowed the deficit in Maricopa County, which includes Phoenix, by 100,000 votes. 2 years later, in the 2018 Senate election, the county swung Democratic, with Democrats gaining another 100,000 net votes. In Georgia, from 2012 presidential election to 2018 gubernatorial election, the 4 counties constituting most of Atlanta and its suburbs, Fulton, DeKalb, Cobb, and Gwinnett, increased their Democratic margins by more than 250,000. Now, guys, again, these are counties that we've all heard the names throughout this whole election, right? And the reason why is because in these red states, they matter. These big population centers matter. And the reality of our political system is that with the Electoral College, these liberals living in these big cities basically drowns out their vote, right? So if you live in New York City, I mean, let's be real, your vote doesn't really count, right? Because New York is going to go blue no matter what. So living in a city like that drowns out your vote. But if you move to the South, that can make a huge difference in terms of elections moving forward. Now, what the Atlantic talked about was the trends from 2012 to 2016 to 2018. Now, let's take a look at what happened in 2020, just based off the information that we have now. Again, guys, I get how a lot of us feel about the election, but just for this video, I have to go with the data that we have. I just have to. So let's take a look. As you can see, Trump in 2016 won Texas, right? With 52.2% of vote. Hillary only had 43.2% of vote. Gary Johnson had 3.2% of vote. This is 2016. Now, in 2020, President Trump still got 52% of the vote. However, Joe Biden has gained some ground with 46.5% of the vote. Now, remember, guys, I understand, the polls are wrong, but they did have Texas as a swing state. And for a long time, Texas has been a solid red state. And the polls said that it was a swing state, although, again, the polls are off. But the actual election results, if you believe them, have the Democrats closing the margin in Texas, right? This is what's happening. Now, again, I'm not saying that Texas, is going to go blue for sure. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is it is a cause for concern, considering how so many people are now moving to Texas from these liberal cities. And this has had an effect on the 2020 election, because let's look at Arizona in 2016. Trump had 48.1% of the vote. Hillary had 44.6% of the vote. Gary Johnson had 4.1% of the vote. Obviously, in 2016, President Trump won Arizona. Now, also take a look at Maricopa County, which, again, everybody talks about. Trump won it by 47.7%. Hillary Clinton had 44.8%. Gary Johnson had 4.3%. Now, let's take a look at Arizona in 2020. Biden won 49.36%, and Trump had 49.06%. So Biden has closed the gap. And again, a lot of this can be attributed to the fact that there's a ton of Democrats straight from California moving to Arizona in that Phoenix area. This is what's happening, guys. And as you can see, Maricopa County, Phoenix, Arizona. Again, according to the election data that we have, Biden won with 50.3% of vote, and Trump had 48.1% of the vote. They flipped that county blue. And again, this is a big deal, because Arizona is currently one of those states that was red for a while, however, has now flipped blue. Again, if you believe the current election results. Now, let's take a look at Georgia. 2016, President Trump won Georgia with 50.4% of the vote, and Hillary had 45.3% of the vote. Gary Johnson had 3% of the vote. Now, in 2020, Biden took the lead in Georgia with 49.5% of the vote, and President Trump had 49.26% of the vote. Now, again, in Georgia, you can see in 2020, Fulton County, Biden had 72.6% of the vote. In DeKalb County, Biden had 83.1% of the vote. Let's look back here in 2016. Fulton County, Hillary had 67.7% of the vote. And in DeKalb County, Hillary had 79.1% of the vote. Again, in 2020, those margins have increased in both counties for the Democrats. So, guys, the reason why I'm talking about this is because as conservatives, we need to be very aware and concerned about this happening. And especially with this pandemic going on, there are tons of people that are moving out of these cities, that are coming to the South, that are coming to conservative states. And this has the possibility, I'm talking about the next 4 to 8 years, of really having a large effect on the political landscape. And we're not just talking about on a national level in terms of elections, right? Look at a state like Florida that went red to Trump. It went red to Trump. However, they did vote for a $15 an hour minimum wage. Tell me how that works, right? It's a conservative state that also wants a $15 an hour minimum wage. And these type of migration patterns can have an effect all over the country. And I just feel like, I need to bring this to you guys' attention so that we are aware of what is currently happening. This pandemic has speeded up a process that was already kind of happening beforehand. This pandemic has made it worse because it's now giving people a reason to move out of these cities because they're afraid of getting the virus. And now they're saying, oh, well, I already kind of felt like the cost of living was too high in New York. I kind of felt like I wasn't getting my bang for my buck. Now with this pandemic coming on, this gives me even more of a reason to go ahead and make that move. And that's what a lot of people are doing according to the data. So the GOP should be terrified of this. This is something that potentially, because of the way the electoral college system works, having even one or two of these traditionally red states flip blue, again, as you guys have seen in this election, could have a huge impact on the political landscape moving forward, and could give the Democrats a significantly large advantage because conservatives are not moving to states like New York. Conservatives are not moving to California. So it's not like there's a counterbalance, right? Progressives moving out of California or New York won't make the state any less blue. Those states are going to stay blue regardless. But if they move to red states, and if there's enough of them moving, again, it can have dire consequences. So I just want to do a video on this. And like I said, I'm happy that Elon Musk and these other tech companies and these other industries are bringing jobs to red states. It definitely helps the people there. However, they're going to be bringing their political ideology. They're going to be influencing local politicians. And this, in the long term, could have a negative effect politically and possibly could put some inflationary strain on some of these states if these residents, if these tech nerds, these people that are young, that don't have families, who don't really contribute to the economy as much, come in and they don't stay permanently. They don't start families. They don't contribute to the economy. They don't spend money. It could potentially raise the cost of living for the native people in those red states. So this is something that I'm going to keep an eye on and I'm concerned about, but I wanted to do a video on it because I don't see many conservatives talking about this. This is something from a political strategy standpoint that we have to be on top of. And the Republican Party and the politicians should be very concerned about this. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that these progressive / liberals, even with their businesses moving to these conservative states, do you guys think that's a win? Or do you think that it could cause trouble long term? Let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.